What's up, YouTube? You might have noticed that my upload frequency has been a little bit sporadic of late, and that's because I've been working on my first program, Parking Lot Bodybuilding. Well, it's available for sale now, so I wanted to explain a little bit about it and why you guys might want to pick it up. So, when I decided to make a program, I wanted to create something with a lot of unique value. I know there are a lot of programs out there, and a lot of them are very similar. And I also know that my audience tends to be more advanced, I think, than the general fitness population. So, probably doesn't need to see that much more of the same thing. So, I try to think about where I could create the most unique value, where my experience would allow me to provide more value. And what I settled on was creating a program designed to get the best results from minimal equipment. I know there are a lot of folks out there with home gyms, and I think this is going to be very beneficial for that category. So, for those of you who don't know my lore, 4 years ago I was just another stagnant lifting hobbyist with some decent lifts and okay physique, but really nothing to write home about. And if it had stayed that way, you guys would never have heard of me. You would have had no reason to, right? But when the gym shut down in 2020, I had to start training in the parking lot with nothing but a barbell and some plates. And for those of you wondering why my neighbors don't think it's weird that I do this, well, that's when I started, so it was normal at that time. And actually, my neighbor across the fence still works out right across the fence from me, so it's normal in my neighborhood. Anyway, that was the best thing that could possibly happen to me because it forced me to break out of the same complacent cycle of doing squat, bench, deadlifts, accessories that so many of us are stuck in, and made me start learning new exercises, new ways of training. And what I learned allowed me to transform my physique and abilities and make a name for myself in the fitness industry. And I've added a little bit of equipment here and there, but it all basically took place on very minimal equipment. So that's something that I would say I have a lot of experience with. The name Parking Lot Bodybuilding started out in my head as just a play on basement bodybuilding because I like his channel and I thought it was funny. But the more I think about it, the more I like it because it really is cool what I've been able to accomplish just training in a parking lot. If a middle aged dad, and I am technically middle aged, as about as young as I can be and still be technically middle aged, but I'm going to throw it in for marketing, and it is technically true. It's not dishonest. If a middle aged dad can make enough gains to get millions of views, big collabs, and podcasts in today's oversaturated social media fitness environment with just the most basic equipment, just training in a parking lot, then I think great progress is possible for anybody fortunate enough to have good health. But I don't just want to inspire you, I want to show you how to do it. So I created a program designed to get the maximum possible results out of the most basic equipment. It's not just a PDF or anything, it's on Train Heroic. The link's below. So every exercise is going to come with its own tutorial video. That's what took so much time to shoot. And that's going to be a big part of the value, the video library of exercise tutorials that you really can't find anywhere else. So the required equipment for this program is just a barbell and plates, gymnastics rings, and resistance bands. That's not the absolute most minimal program possible in terms of equipment requirement. I mean, I could have made it body weight only, obviously, but there are plenty of body weight programs out there. And I picked this list because it's what I consider to be the most minimal equipment that allows for no compromise results. With this equipment, I'm confident in promising excellent results for every body part. At minimum, it's going to be comparable to what you get from a program utilizing a full gym, but at risk of sounding cocky, I think it's going to be quite a bit better in many cases. Now, that's not to say there's anything wrong with a full gym. I'm not saying that to be an elitist, like, oh, I train with a minimalist equipment. I'm more hardcore than you. No, nothing like that. I'm not trying to say that. In fact, when my kids are older and I have more free time, I'll probably start training in a gym again because it is nice to have that convenience. But I do think that a lot of people get lulled into complacency by that convenience and just over rely on easy answers that are just sitting right there in front of them instead of experimenting and finding something that might actually be better. For example, a lot of people just go in, get on the standing calf raise machine, go on the seated calf raise machine, and then blame their genetics for their lack of calf progress, right? But you take away the easy answers and you might find better solutions. At least that's what happened to me and what I'm going to share with you in the program. So even if you do have access to a full gym, I do think you'll find some value in this program. I think it'll be fairly obvious where if you have access to dumbbells, squat racks, etc., you can substitute those in just to make the program more convenient. I'm not trying to make this unnecessarily inconvenient for you. The tutorials in my program will allow you to effectively perform back squats even if you don't have a rack, but if you have one, feel free to use it. It should be clear which exercises are like core components that I'd have you do even in the best equipped gym and which ones are workarounds for limited equipment, right? Like obviously if you have a squat rack, do your back squats out of the rack. But if you don't, you can use the Steinberg squat or Arthur lift as I teach you in the tutorials, right? So the program itself is a 12-week, 6-day a week program with a 2-week rotation. Now, that might sound like a lot, but you won't necessarily have to do all of it if you don't want to. My design philosophy was to be as completionist as possible because I want to provide value not just in the program itself, but also in the exercise library videos, right? I know a lot of my subscribers are advanced lifters who may not necessarily even want to run someone else's program exactly as written, but I think they'll still find a lot of value in the exercise library. Each exercise comes with a detailed tutorial video explaining it, and a lot of the stuff you probably won't find anywhere else. So I think it's going to be worth the investment for anyone with a home gym, even if you don't necessarily intend to run the entire program, just to get that exercise library. So I tried to be as comprehensive as possible for that reason, including dedicated workouts for neck, calves, forearms, upper arms, as well as the more standard workouts for chest, back, shoulders, quads, etc. Right? As written, it does require a lot of training time to complete, but you'll be able to cut down on training time by simply skipping or reducing workouts for areas you don't care about as much. I'd rather give you the option and let you choose what to do, and if you don't want to, that's fine. But don't worry about getting overloaded by volume if you do run the entire thing. Each individual area is going to get plenty of recovery time. The volume is a function of comprehensiveness and variety, not necessarily repetition. And there's also a 2-week exercise rotation for some of the bigger lifts to allow for that specific recovery. So it's not going to be as big of a deal as you guys might think. Very similar schedules work very well for me and for some of my clients who do have more time to devote to training. So I definitely encourage you to do the whole thing if you do have the time and you need it. Some of you, for example, might have giant calves genetically and you just don't want to do the calf program. That's perfectly fine, right? Anyway, my point here is don't hold off on buying it just because you only have like 4 or 5 days to devote to training, because you can really easily cut down to that and consolidate to make it work. So the program is primarily a hypertrophy program, so naturally the best results are going to require a calorie surplus. But as you guys know, I don't like to just completely separate hypertrophy from everything else. A lot of my favorite exercises for hypertrophy just happen to be great for increasing range of motion, getting strong, resilient, and unusual ranges of motion, etc. So while this is, not a 12-week to splits program, I put as much bang for your buck mobility, joint health, etc. into it because they just dovetail so well together. There's not a cost to adding that stuff or to including those modalities in terms of hypertrophy. The only cost is that in some cases it is going to require more effort to master more difficult exercises and also more judgment to scale into challenging exercises in a safe, responsible pace, right? I'm assuming that's a trade-off that most of my subscribers would happily make. So I think it makes more sense for me to offer a program with more ancillary benefit than most hypertrophy programs at the cost of requiring a little bit more agency. I hope that's something that most of you guys agree with, right? So on that note, this is more of an intermediate to advanced program. Beginners probably don't need anything this complicated, and I included a number of advanced exercises that could potentially be risky if performed at too high a level by someone who's unprepared. While my tutorial videos are going to go into great detail about how to scale the exercises in order to get into them safely, I do think anyone who follows those guidelines that I've laid out will be about as safe as you can be while exercising, which, is not a risk-free activity, but that's only going to work if you follow those guidelines. So please pay attention. Be patient. Don't try to skip ahead. I scale difficult exercises, and I'm sure you're seeing some scaling going on in the video. I'm putting up footage of training. A lot of this stuff is in parking lot bodybuilding. Not all of it is. This is just my training, but that's where this came from, right? Anyway, you'll see me scaling in this video. I scale everyone who's ever accomplished anything notable. Scaled in order to get there, so please be patient, right? So overall, I'm really happy with the way the program came out. What started out as just a specialized program designed to work with very minimal equipment, I think it's capable of providing value in a wide variety of ways. Obviously, if you have a home gym or minimalist equipment, I think it's going to be a no-brainer. Like I said, even if you don't necessarily intend to follow the program exactly as written, I think the exercise library is going to be more than worth the cost. But even if you do have a full gym and you're looking for a really comprehensive program that covers a lot of areas that are commonly skipped, one that's going to have you doing more involved and advanced, but also more rewarding exercises. I think you'll still really like this one. If sitting on a bunch of machines to train isn't your vibe, but you also don't want to be one of those functional guys who has to tell everyone how great the training is because they don't really have any visible results to show. I mean, this is exactly what you're looking for. Something to get you out of the regular basic stuff without going into either one of those extremes of just like let me sit on a machine and do the most optimal exercise, or let me do like weird stuff. Weird, do you even lift stuff? You're going to really like this one. I've always preached that it's possible to get big while building ability, strength, mobility, coordination, functionality, etc. And I think this program really lives up to that ideal. So if you're interested, go ahead and pick it up with a link to Train Heroic. I've got the link down there. And thanks for watching. I really hope you guys enjoy.